I'm here. Troy Corona.
Here.
Betsy Ross.
Here.
Michael Matz.
Here.
Melissa Samborski.
Here.
Loredana Camacho is not here. Ronnie Carpenter.
Here.
Okay. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First item, discussion of possible action, amended art teacher contract.
So we have a full-time art teacher and we have a half-time art teacher. And after scheduling students, we found that we had a need for an additional art class. Two reasons for that. One, we've seen an increase in interest in art from our students, which is great. And we also have less places to put freshmen because we weren't able to fill one of those family and consumer science positions and one of our tech ed positions. So just looking to amend that contract, increasing it from a 0.5 to a 0.67 or 2/3 time. And that difference would be a total of $8,741.83. And this would be contingent upon that employee gaining their art licensure this year. Any questions about that?
Okay, then we need a motion to,
Move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
okay. If there's no further questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Now we'll move on to the school resource officer contract.
This is an annual contract that we have with the Kenosha County Sheriff's Department for our school resource officer. Please note that in your packet, there is the legal agreement that has their responsibilities and our responsibilities. There's no changes to that document from last year and probably several years in a row. The cost has increased slightly, like everything else. This year, the increase is $1,222.40 over last year, and the overtime rate has increased by 40 cents an hour. We don't do a lot of overtime with our SRO, but there are some events like, sporting events from time to time, football games. If we have a large basketball game, it could be something that we would ask him to be on staff for, dances, things like that. So we do pay some overtime. So the contract is in your packet as well. Any questions?
All right, if there's no questions, need a motion to approve as presented.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
If there's no further questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right.
Move to adjourn.
You got a chance to vote on it. Is there a
I second it.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Work meeting together.
Working.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Okay, we'll have the roll call. Wayne Charles here, Troy Corona.
Here.
Betsy Ross.
Here.
Mike Matz.
Here.
Melissa Samborski.
Here.
Loredana Camacho's not here. Ronnie Carpenter.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item for discussion will be the new teachers and administrator introduction.
Yeah, so I invited Don Norwick and Kim Christian to the meeting of our mentee program. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but before we get there, I'd like to ask them to introduce our new staff that's with us here today. Really excited about the people that we were able to bring in, a variety of experiences and talents, and it's just a really solid group of new staff members. So if you guys wouldn't mind, please introduce who's here with us today.
First, I'll introduce Chrissy Braun, one of our new math department teachers.
What's nice is Chrissy, first-year teacher, coming right out of Lake Forest, so we won't hold that against her as a conference we played against, but very excited, brings a wealth of knowledge, has an ESL background too that we're going to tap into eventually, but once again, very excited. That first opportunity. Had a conversation with her just the other day, said, keep your head above water. I remember as a first-year teacher was doing lesson plans as kids were walking in, but she's doing a great job making connections with kids, so welcome.
And we have Jordan Reynolds in the FCS department.
Yeah, I will say a story about Jordan too. We were having a very hard time trying to find an FCS teacher. And I reached out to my fellow principal colleagues, and Dan Keel over at Elkhorn says, I have a guy for you. And I'm like, okay, you got a name for that guy? It took 3 weeks to get a name. And when I'm like, Dan, come on, what are you doing to me? He's like, I don't want to get rid of him because he was used there as a sub. I said, we're going to steal him. But Dan at Elkhorn, and we are very proud of Jordan joining our staff. Comes with a great experience in the kitchen, culinary, working with the kitchens. Got some daughters that are in culinary, just moved a daughter into college. And so Jordan being not new to teaching, but being a full-time teacher in the FCS, we're really, really excited about what his life experience is going to do in the classroom. So welcome.
You guys have any questions for our new teachers?
I would just like to say, I swear, this is the first time we've ever had a goofy controversy. We don't normally do that.
There was more teachers that couldn't be here today. though.
Yep, so the other new teachers are Devin Janata, math, Craig Mattern, special ed, Michelle Prylis, part-time library media specialist, split with Trevor Wilmot, and Cassie Stoner, special ed teacher. I also want to take a minute to introduce Mallory Drew. Mallory is our new Director of Pupil Services. We were very fortunate to be able to hire her away from the West Allis School District, so grateful to have her on our staff as well. So welcome, Mallory.
Yeah, nice to meet everyone. I'm really excited. What is it, week 5? So gotten to know awesome students, all the staff with the special ed department, the paraprofessionals. Really excited to serve your district. To really create an inclusive environment. So really started, keep going, right, Rob?
Yeah, no choice.
And then just excited to work with all of you too. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
To our two new teachers that are here today, what has stuck out to you that Wilmot thrives on?
I think everybody, all the other teachers and administrators and everything, I was a sub at Elkhorn, and everybody seems to be more hands-on and helpful, more than other schools that I've been in contact with, for sure. I mean, that's definitely the most positive thing that I've experienced here.
And I understand you only had temporary teaching, so.
Well, I mean, I student taught in at a high school in Gurnee where there was 2 campuses, and one campus was freshmen, sophomores, that was way bigger than here. So coming to a smaller school, I like to feel that I can say hi to anyone in the hallways and they'll say hi back. And I ask them actually, how's my day doing? And how are things going? I went to my first high school football game as a teacher on Friday, and
she stuck it out through the whole game.
there was a lot of school spirit that I could see in the students and the passion that they have for their other peers and everything going on in the school. So.
And on that note, Wilmot is playing Elkhorn this Friday, and I normally work on Friday nights, but I live in Elkhorn, and I obviously have sub there, and I'm not coach there, I'm a lacrosse coach at Elkhorn, so I'll be at that game. I don't know if anybody else is.
But what are you gonna be wearing?
We'll make sure that you have some Wilmot football stuff on. So.
Well, yeah, I need to talk to Herm to get some swag from him. And
Yeah, I'm sure we could hook you up. None of that Elkhorn stuff.
Welcome aboard.
And thank you, Ms. Acosta, for joining us today. She's Chrissy's mentor.
Nice segue there.
Professional staff mentor mentee program.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Don and Kim back up to present to the board about our mentoring program.
All right, I attached a couple things to the agenda today. One is just kind of an overview of what we do for the mentor mentee program is based on the months. You have a list of all our mentor mentees on there. We run a tier program now compared to like when we used to meet as one large group. As a teacher coming in, I think I've talked about this with the board before, I was extremely frustrated because I had 10 years of experience. And I'm talking about like classroom management strategies and all that. I'm like, this is not what I need right now. So what we did, and Kim and I had talked about this, we decided to do a tiered approach, one first years and then second and third years together. What I'm trying to mold this program into is essentially molding it into exactly what that group of teacher needs in that moment. So there's a lot of surveying with the new staff and talking about kind of where they are, a lot of reflective practices. With the second and third year, I'm trying to coach teachers in the midst of their career. So whether or not they're new to the teaching program in general or just new to the district, my job is essentially like how can we grow professionally, even tying into the fact that financial planning and things along those lines. So the fact is things that are going to carry you through, because I think the better financial decisions you make as a teacher, the easier the decision is to make and stay in a great district. So anything that we can do to support that in the second and third year and beyond. Obviously, as a tiered approach, they need less and less support, depending on where they are in their career. So something we've really strived to make better every single year. So we're very reflective of this. It's changing. I'd like to say everything we did last year is what we're doing this year, but it's not. We're really catered to who we get in that group of teachers. We're actually blessed with this group of first year teachers or first year district. There's only like 5. I haven't been here yet where there's only been 5 teachers in the room. I think with my very first year we had 12, then we went to 13 the next one, and I think it was 20 the following year. So it's exciting to see what we can do with this smaller group, but that's generally the approach that we're taking with the program. Kim wants to explain the mentee handbook. Yeah.
So I'm kind of one of those behind the scenes people. So one of my projects is the handbook here that he had linked for it. And so every year when the mentors and mentees come in, they get a handbook. And basically what that is kind of our textbook, our workbook for the whole year. And it is kind of an explanation. It starts with the program itself, kind of a job description for our mentors, and a job description of what we expect from the mentees, and also as far as like the admin support of the program as well is also in there. It's got all of our important dates in there because like Don was mentioning, our first year teachers, they meet monthly, and our second and third year mentees with their mentors, we meet bi-monthly then, as you can see down on the bottom here. So different timelines based on where they're at in the district. As you go further into the handbook, you're going to see that what we have set up in here are some monthly activities, because we have our mentors and mentees also get together outside of our meetings, and there's some like designated activities that we would like them to do, and just talking points and things for them to hit on. Like one of the ones that we just had in our meeting was homecoming week. Talk about that, what is it like, expectations and things like that. So every month we kind of cater it to different things based on what we're doing. That takes us basically up to the end of when we get through all of our months to then our framework, which basically is our teacher evaluation tool. And then that is the updated one that we're using in the building from the administration to the teachers, but then we also have our mentors working with our mentees, and a real thorough specific rubrics attached in there too for all of them too, not for evaluation purposes, but so that they can be giving feedback. So the mentors and mentees do some observations of one another, and then those rubrics are in there then for some growth and feedback purposes for them. So kind of our handbook.
Yeah, and with this, especially with the observations, you're observing your mentor's observing you, and then we kind of do a swap as well. And then we look at essentially where your strengths are and where your weaknesses may be, and we have you observe other people in the building. So we're really utilizing the resources that we have here with the same types of kids, like within different departments or something along those lines. So one thing I feel like with the program right now is we're really tapping into the resources that we have within the building and making sure we're highlighting the good practices of our current teachers. So, any questions about that at all?
Just want to point out that this year with our mentor-mentee, we've done an excellent job of supporting, and when we say new teachers, we're talking about new to the building. You know, we were able to hire a math teacher with 17 years experience. You know, another teacher with, I believe, 10 to 12, another teacher with 10 to 12. What we're starting to do is we're starting to attract talented candidates that are leaving districts to come to Wilmot. And I think that's a testament to our staff. I think it's a testament of what we're doing as an admin team in the school, and then also the mentor-mentee program of providing that support. For someone to leave a school district after 17 years to come to a new place, it's a testament of what the culture that we're trying to build here. And so we're excited how we're starting to see, even from my first year to now, and I give that a credit to a lot of our mentor-mentee programming where our staff feels supported. We have other staff members recruiting other staff to come here, and it's a very strong program. And it's hard work by Don and Kim and their entire team.
The positivity is awesome. You look at the new hires that we heard already. One of the things we changed this year with our mentor in-service days in August is we felt like a lot of it was kind of like sit and get, like going through the logistics of the building. The first year we completely like just trashed and we said, no, we're gonna teach about Wilmot, we're gonna teach about culture and climate. So it was all engaged around getting to know you, getting to know your support systems, getting to know the community. So one of the ways that, you know, my friend Dan Bender here and I, we took him on a quick tour of Wilmot by going to Wilmot Mountain. We went to American Girl Doll House, went to Stage Shop, we showed the gas station, we showed the Hamptons, the sports complex. Just a little bit, because during that 30-minute time period where we had them in a van for a quick tour, we were prepping 8 to 9 students that we had come in, and actually for a Q&A that we've never done before. So current students and former students were actually able to, you know, give their experiences at Wilmot and ask them questions and back and forth, which was really, really awesome to see. One, that our kids would come in during the summers and actually do this with our staff, and just the interactions and some of the questions and showing our staff why our kids love Wilmot. You know, and it's not necessarily always the academics in the classroom, it's the relationship building and things like that. And I was very happy to hear both of them explain, like, we are very active. You know, we're close to the community, the admin are involved, all the teachers involved. We want to make sure that you're supported. I'm glad they got that within, you know, the first week of our being here. So.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Very good.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right.
Don't sit down yet. You're up again, Don.
Okay. Standards-based grading handbook.
So one of the things that Don and I talked about last year was finding new ways to communicate to our families, you know, what standards-based grading is. And then we felt like, you know, another thing we need to do is make sure that we're very consistent from staff member to staff member. So Don came up with the idea of developing a standards-based grading handbook, and I thought he did such a nice job that I asked him if he'd come today to show the board, and then this will be available on the website. Is it already up, or will be up soon?
I think we're waiting for the.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
It'll be up there.
sounds good.
So, it's SPG handbook, so Mike and I did talk about this. I initially got part of the idea from Principal Cry as well, and kind of seeing what other schools are doing that are transitioning to standards-based grading. So really what this handbook was is it's a tool to use for our staff, our teachers, our students, and our community of kind of what we've done with standards-based grading so far. And you know, I've only been here for 4 years, but I've heard enough of the story to kind of put it all together and kind of complete the timeline to show everything that we've done and why we're doing it. So this entire document is essentially the legitimacy behind the why of standards-based grading and what we're doing here at Wilmot. It's 29 pages long, so feel free to read it at your leisure. But really, it's a reference tool. So the fact is, if I have parents asking me about our grading policies and the why, I'm going to reference this first, and then kind of build from there. And new staff, they all got a physical copy of this already. You know, some of them are coming from districts that have never done standards-based grading before, how to like actually bring it into the classroom. This is the first thing that I'm tapping into and saying, like, this is kind of our guidebook for those practices and why we did it. Some positive things already, like I said, table of contents, you can kind of go through all of it, but it really explains everything we've done in parent presentations and the rollout since 2017, any of the major questions that we've gotten and major things that we've dealt with in this entire process. Again, this is a living document. We can keep updating it, but it's kind of our one-stop shop to like, hey, this is what we do with standards-based grading here. Now, after creating this and kind of talking about it with other districts and other institutions of higher learning, this document's gonna be referenced in a published ebook, probably within the next month. They're gonna use Wilmot as an example school and kind of what we've done. I have Milton and Middleton and I wanna say Oregon High School looking at this right now at adopting certain things from our handbook already that they wanna do moving forward. This has been really influential in networking with schools and saying like Wilmot is starting to become the forefront of standards-based grading in the area. And we're implementing it, we're doing it, we're not talking about it anymore, it's not a book study, it's not a couple of questions, we're physically doing it every single day in our classrooms, and districts wanna know how. They wanna know what we went through and what we're doing, and this is our way of sharing that with them. So we already are getting plenty of people citing our references and citing out materials that we're creating here, so they can work along their journey in their district. So it's a great thing, and I'm very proud of it, and you know, I did create it, but I'm proud of it for the fact that it's highlighting, I don't think we do that enough. We can get caught in some of the negativity when we first outrolled it, but it's a great thing for our school, it's a great thing for our students, that other districts are noticing that. So it's one of the things that is definitely highlighting us as a school right now.
Danielle, is this on the website where it's front and center?
Nope.
Will it be?
We're waiting for the transition to the website, and then it'll be part of the SBG
Got it, okay.
calendar.
We do have the website in development right now, the new
Mhm.
one, and the soft rollout is expected around November, and then a full rollout by January.
So I'm gonna be doing a beginning of the year email or message out to parents. This will be attached to it. So I'm gonna make sure like, hey, everyone gets some sort of copy of this, explanation of SBG, Otis, and all those things, and then this is gonna be there too. And I've already shared this with our feeder schools as well.
Nice job.
I have
Fantastic.
a couple questions, and I could actually, I could reach out to you. I wasn't sure if this is just a presentation or a discussion on it, so if you want me to reach out with my questions after, or do you want to have it now?
No, if you have questions, go ahead.
So one question was, I don't see the decaying average anymore in here, so is that no longer happening for the grade per essential standard?
So we are still using decaying average. So we're talking about like individually calculating the grade.
Like for each, so for instance, if you go to like page 11,
Okay.
where like standard one has a 2.3, but I think that 2.3 would be based on the decaying average for that standard, and I don't see that discussed in here.
The discussion of decaying average is already, one reason I didn't want to put it in the handbook is because we've had trouble explaining it.
Sure.
And without a foolproof, clear example of decaying average, I didn't want to throw it into the handbook. But it is a living text, so we're still working on it. Mike and I have had several conversations on it, as well as what to do with decaying average moving forward.
Okay.
So before we have the finality of that, I didn't want to include it in this.
But maybe at least a reference that would be, so I think that if somebody said, well, why is, because it's using the word average all the time, and then couldn't they come back and question like, well, it's not based on a true average, it's this decaying, you know what I mean? Like, at least mentioning it and saying additional guidance is coming, or somehow acknowledging that there's another step that's not discussed. I don't know. But yeah, so I mean, if you already had discussions on it, but,
I think that's a good suggestion, Mrs. Crono. We'll talk about that.
okay.
I mean, we do share in our parent presentation, you're right, a little bit about decaying average, and most, as you know, as a parent too, you're like, okay, I get it, but how does that work into calculate it, so,
But if it's not even acknowledged here, then
Yeah.
it seems a little.
correct, the why.
Or even a little questionable, like,
Yep.
wait, you know what I mean? So I just, to add more validity to it, at least
Yeah.
acknowledging it, even if you're not ready with an example. I don't know, yeah.
Well, the other part, there's two parts. Anytime we do anytime we do mention average in this document, it's a true average of the standards themselves, like the
Right.
decaying average. And then the decaying average, we're having an open discussion with teachers currently
Yeah,
on whether or not we can continue with decaying average, or we want to adjust the percentages.
sure.
So that's why I didn't want to include it
Yeah, no,
until
I
we
get
were final
that.
on it.
So then I think, yeah, you could even just say, that's forthcoming, or that's a
Okay.
discussion, or, I mean, somehow so that it doesn't surprise somebody when it's
Absolutely.
graded differently than is explained here at the end of the semester.
Yeah, I was avoiding because I didn't want to put something that we're going to change.
I totally get that, yeah.
I drafted this during the summer when the teachers went back at the half.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, you'd want the full input.
Yeah.
On page 8, on the absolute 3, I think some of the concerns that were brought up where that two summatives, that maybe one of the ways would have been to add more summatives. Are we sticking with two? I mean, so I get that two might be the minimum, but I don't see that you're encouraged, the teachers are encouraged to have more.
So in individual conversations we've had with staff so far with SPG, we are promoting more than two.
Okay.
But it's not something we've changed yet in the at least two category for the absolute.
The question really comes into, you know, we were very, leadership team, very systematic about the word opportunities. Because if I'm being, you know, given a summative on a sensor standard, and I'm advanced, I knock it out of the park right away. You know, do I need, once again, to be assessed on that? So that's where that debate and conversation. Then we come back and discuss with teachers where, you know, if you can give a student a summative on a sensor standard multiple times. And so we're starting to get into the flexibility of who needs what in order to show proficiency or advance on that summative. So that's where the leadership team said, okay, at least two, because we didn't want teachers to say, well, I gave one, now we move on. Because now we're back into the traditional
Right.
component of what did I learn? And so as we say, we continue to tweak this, we continue to look at it, and a lot of times when we start looking at the absolutes that we have, we bring it to our leadership team brings it to their groups, we bring it back, and so just changing one or two words takes a long time, and I think that due diligence is needed.
Yeah.
As we discussed the cane average, we discussed the number of data points, we even call them learning opportunities. We have to give kids enough learning opportunities within that framework to show that they're proficient or advanced within there. So, like I said, any suggestions that you see as a board member, as a parent, we want to discuss and look at. So.
And the other, I mean, we're talking about types of standards as well. So if you have more content level standards than the actual skill, we're leaning our teachers more towards changing them over slowly to the skill that are more content heavy. So if you had 18 standards all content heavy, if I tested this once, I have to guarantee that I can test that again, even though they nailed it with that first content one. And I might not cover that content again because they have it. Well, if you're doing that, then why wouldn't you focus on the skill where the content can be fluid throughout the entire
Right.
unit? Or units that are, so one thing we're doing at, behind the scenes of this one is we're updating all of our essential standards, ICANN tables. And we're working with staff to kind of move towards more skill-based standards versus having the content heavy ones.
So I think the behind the scenes work is phenomenal that the staff is doing, but if this becomes out there and you're not selling some of the behind the scenes, then you're not showing the program is as strong and student beneficial as it is.
Okay.
Sure.
So maybe adding more of that into there, and you don't have to get in depth on some of them, but maybe like in the discussion section, like this is something we work on in a case by case with the teachers, or, like really selling the extra work that you're doing, because this is gonna be picked apart by your naysayers as well as some other schools, so I wouldn't wanna lose sight of all that good work you're doing by not at least commenting on some of those things. It's somewhat you're comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good point.
And then on absolute 4, do you wanna do feedback within 3 days? Is it inferred that it's school days? Cause it says feedback must be given back to students within 3 days.
That's a good debate, because if I give a formative on a Friday,
Right,
and if I'm waiting now to Wednesday or Thursday to give that feedback, you lost that learning opportunity, in my opinion. That, and I wish Kim, that's something we can discuss. I don't think that came up during our leadership team. It hasn't got any pushback from our teachers either. No, I don't
but
think
maybe
we.
not uniformly understood, and
Correct.
if you're looking for consistency, at least, what is your expectation
Yeah.
to the teachers,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
is it 3 day days?
The intent is 3 work days.
Work days,
No.
yeah. So,
But also, we do have a lot of our teachers with formatives instant feedback.
Yeah.
Because of necessity. So that's just something I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is our absolutes, which we build that off of. So maybe that's an easy change that we bring to the leadership team. I'm sure the teachers would like that clarification also too.
yeah, and then the only other question or comment I had on it is I know in some of the classes, it's a lot harder to provide additional opportunities, for instance, in some of the tech classes, right, where, so I don't know if those classes that are truly non-traditional testing might benefit from an additional section on ways, or, and you might not have that yet, maybe it's forthcoming, but I know Like,
I've worked with them
Yeah.
individually to kind of discuss how they can assess differently. So a problem with their summative, I shouldn't say problem, like an opportunity that's.
a challenge.
A challenge,
There you
sure. Is that they actually are summatively assessing a lot more than they think.
Sure.
And it's recording it and how they're recording it. And that's
Right.
something I've worked with them towards the later half of the summer into the beginning of the year. So now they're gonna show more summative attempts for that practice skill as well as the actual physical, like, skill of doing it.
Mhm.
One of the things we've done specifically with advanced cabinet making, we had 9 initial standards laid out. Now we have 18, and because we're gonna do 9 practical standards and then 9 actual, like, physical skill. So
Okay.
you can prove that you got book knowledge, but can you actually do it? And that's a way we're gonna kind of balance those out as well. So every kid is guaranteed at least 4 attempts technically at that one standard, except for 2 in the book as well as 2 is in physical activity.
Yeah, so like selling that behind the
Yeah.
scenes work as well, because I know that was one area that some parents expressed to me frustration because, and you were rolling it out and you're working to improve,
Yeah.
but, you know, acknowledging that here for the parent who does actually read it would, I think, help show how much work staff has done to address the concerns.
Yeah, do you have, I mean, more suggestions on how to create that narrative? I think it's just kind of difficult to say like our specific path.
Right.
You know, we're even trying to help our teachers understand what a summative is. You know, if I'm making a cabinet, you know, our teacher's like, well, the cabinet is, you know, the final project. But we have a portfolio component to it. They're taking pictures, our steps, those are summatives. So our teachers are changing their thought process on what an actual summative may be. You know, it could be something simple as having a conversation with a student, that student demonstrates the knowledge even at an advanced level. That can be a summative. That's difficult. I think we spent some time on it this summer to try to say, don't think about summative just as a paper and pencil. You know, Mike has some experience where he had, you know, basically a menu of options of how we can assess our students. We're getting there, we're not good yet, but allowing our teachers that flexibility to build that into their curriculum is still some of the places we're going.
And one of the good tools that we have with Otis right now is, you know, I plugged in really quick, is that I can individually assign 6 summatives to a kid while assigning only 2 to the rest of the class. And I can track that data. So the fact is that, you know, getting our teachers to understand that they can do that now in our grade book, and they can individually get personalized summative instruction to that student that I don't need to give the entire class. So I could give you at least 2 because you were advanced, but this other kid, I needed to give 6 before he was proficient. Right? I need to give 8 before he's emerging. They can use that tool in Otis, and it'll track that data as well. So we'll see that he had 8 attempts or 6 attempts.
And I would welcome all board members that kind of like what we're doing right now is kind of pinpoint some of these, because obviously Don and I have been, Mike, the whole team we live this. So we practiced it, we preached it, but we missed some of the minute points that might be coming from our parents saying, well, what does this absolutely mean? And so if those things do, please email me or email Don so we can have a discussion saying, okay, how do we articulate that? Because as you're pointing out right now, we can talk all day about it, but it doesn't matter. What we know is we want to make sure our parents
Right.
understand exactly what you're asking. So please, anyone, keep firing those questions while we continue to build what this handbook looks like. Because Joe, I think you're right. We want once again, if a district picks this up, that they don't have room for questions or thoughts or going, well, how do they do that? We want to say, okay, this is how we do it, and this is the framework
Well,
we're in.
and you really want the community to understand the depth of effort that you've had to evolve the program, and that you've heard some of it, and you're addressing it, and that it's all in there. And, so I just wanted to tell the full story of
Yeah.
all that hard work. Does that make
Appreciate
sense?
that. Yeah, 100%.
And then the only other one, I almost promised. Absolute 4 and 5, so 4 is formative and 5 is homework, but isn't homework really a formative?
I mean, absolutely.
So
You
then,
think
to
so,
me,
Tyler?
it's like a lingo confusing, because now it almost looks like they're 2 different things, but I think they're the same, aren't they?
Well, homework is a version of a formative, but it's not the only formative. You know,
Okay,
Formative
true.
can be done within the school day, so they're not quite the same.
And I think a lot of that too is when we split up the word formative and homework, is that we're trying to get rid of the culture of what we believed homework to be. And that's, I think, why we separated them into 4 and 5. And remember that all these absolutes were setting the foundation for our SPG. So it's like, these are the building blocks upon what we're trying to accomplish and put in more detail. So when I'm having a brand new staff member come, you know, they have their own idea of formatives and homework. This is the clear cut, like, this is kind of the difference is what we expect. and then the conversation takes place of how it's being done in the department.
But don't the bullets under 5 kind of refer to all formative? For instance, students are not penalized in early attempts. I mean, that would be true for any form of formative, not just a homework. I don't know,
No, you make some, I mean, almost the language should be,
and it
are we
starts
saying
off with
homework is
formative
formatives at
assignments.
home? You know,
But I don't know if
I
the
don't know.
bullets on 5 are really just related to formatives at home.
And I think between 3 and 4, we were trying to come up with like the minimum.
Right.
We're talking about minimums and setting that number, whereas like 5 is more of a mindset.
well, and I think your point to this is, we're trying to change the narrative that homework doesn't count, formatives don't count. We're still battling that to a certain degree, as you know, and so, I know Mike, you were saying.
Well, I was just gonna say, another way these are different is, you know, with formatives, we're saying, you know, we're gonna put a score in the grade book so that you know how you're progressing.
Mm.
You may not receive a score for homework, but it's still expected as part of your academic responsibilities. So, you know, we can look at how these two are worded. I do think they're different, but we can connect them in that homework may be given for a formative score.
And I think you're bringing up a great point, because again, I look at this and I know exactly what I'm trying to say, but I don't see it from.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like formative is defined and summative is defined in your glossary, but homework isn't. So I'm just trying to like,
Well, even the first bullet point,
Right.
Under homework, you could
It's-
take the word formative out. It could just say assignments and evidence, maybe taken into consideration.
and that might be a better way to do it is,
Yeah.
you know, maybe, yeah, I get that you're trying to also comment on homework, but I
Yeah.
just don't know if those bullets fit
Yeah.
under that. I don't know, I had a hard time transitioning from 4 to 5,
No,
looking
excellent.
outward.
It's great feedback, thank you.
Or we have working sessions. Get work done.
But those are the only areas that I like
Oh, there's more.
highlighted when
You keep flying them out.
I
Yeah,
know.
good. Come on, I know there's more, so
I
keep
just
sending
wanted to
those.
prove I did my homework ahead of the meeting.
I was doing this for something, I had people pick it apart, and I mean, it's just, it was great, because again, from my lens of writing the stories, like, I would have.
Well, you're in depth with it, so you
Exactly.
understand what you mean, I get it, yeah.
No,
But-
keep sending.
But I do really think there's a lot of great work here, and definitely think this will be helpful to everyone.
Do you find that the AP class teachers have a hard time with this because the standards are here when an AP class is up here?
The AP
In an
classes have their own
essence.
standards. So,
Okay,
and
they do.
the great thing about it is being a former AP teacher myself, I would have much rather done this. Because I'm gonna teach just to, because it's exactly what I was doing, you're teaching to the standards that are on the test. So
Mhm.
my AP comparative government class had 5 essential standards or 5 categories, those would be my standards in class today, and that's how I've kind of broken it down as an example for our staff.
Okay.
So the ones that are making that transition actually really appreciate it. The problem is like content, and content's always gonna be an issue with those classes, because there's never enough time.
Mhm.
But they're still focusing on the things they absolutely need to focus on, and that's really what they wanted to assess anyway.
Okay.
The only, I think, hiccup we've had there, and a way we've kind of worked past, is that some of the AP tests, the success rate is based on how many you get right in the multiple choice test. So in some of the classes I've actually made, I said, well, let's make that a standard. So the fact is, your success rate on the multiple choice needs to be 52 to 65% to guarantee you a 3, because that's literally what it needs to be. If you go above that, then you can get, proficient in advanced, but that's how we've broken them down too,
Okay.
to show kids where they are.
As I was scrolling through, because I did not promise, but when you were talking about the great thing about Otis,
Mhm.
so maybe you add a benefits for staff to the Otis grading platform?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't fit, but if they're, again, trying to sell that and,
I feel like I can write a whole nother handbook on Otis though. That's
Right.
where I was kind of stuck here. It's
Yeah.
like,
but I
it's-
think there was still a lot of community misconception that we didn't need to pay for another service and we didn't need to change.
Yeah.
And so, again, I'm looking at this narrative not to kill multiple birds with one stone, right?
Yeah.
So you wanna sell all that work, you wanna say, hey, there was a reason we did it, it's not only helping the students and the parents, it's helping the staff.
Yeah,
And so just finding other ways
yeah, I
to,
can definitely do that.
to sell it.
I actually think I had that in one of the early versions and I got rid of it, so I can definitely have that.
Yeah, and again, you guys are the, as you go through it, not all these suggestions may fit, but,
But I mean, I think if you're a community member or a parent looking at it, like I want that feedback,
Mhm.
before, like, hey, here it is on our website, ready to go. Because again, I know exactly what I'm talking about, I know what
Right.
the teachers wanted, I know what other districts are kind of looking at, but I don't know the community parent aspect of it yet, so.
well, I think the community or parents who have those conversations get it, but there's so many that don't reach out.
Correct.
And they're relying then on the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, yeah.
So you kind of want it to be able to stand that test if they don't have the one-on-one conversations, which they should, but they don't always.
Well, I was just saying, I think the intent here is for this to be a reference guide for people, you know, so it is a balance of telling the story, but also
Yeah.
making sure that people can get their answers quickly.
True, yeah, we don't need it to be a encyclopedia.
Page 12, that's your cliff note. That made me happy, because when I asked Aaron what he got, and he told me 2.8, I thought he was lying to me that he was passing his class. That's really, you know, people are not, parents in my experience, they don't need a lot of handouts. They're tired, they're burnt out, they're worked all day, they just wanna know that their kids are successful. Honestly, this is a beautiful handout, I love it, but they want that,
That's, I have the slideshow that one of you guys sent out last year
Yeah.
into my computer, so whenever I look at Amy's grades, I'm like,
That's
okay,
it.
there we go.
Yeah.
They can look at the other stuff on Sunday when they have coffee and they're calm from the week. That's their moment. Aaron needs to be above a 200, and then he can play football. That's where I'm at. And I asked Andrew and Aaron, how do they feel about this? Because this is, Mama grew up with the A, B, D, F thing. And they're like, Mom, it's fine. We got it figured out. Kids are adaptable. They're dynamic. They grow. They thrive. It's the parents that gotta chill out about that. Forget it. They will make it. They will be fine. This is better because you're testing their knowledge. They're growing. They're rising. Once a Samborski had an A, they cut off. Well, now they can't cut off. They gotta keep pushing it. And that's what I like about it. You gotta challenge them. So, this is the page. Most of this community, I could be wrong, this is what I put on my refrigerator. So the rest of it, I think you guys are doing a good job. Thank you for that.
Yep.
That's what I look for, so.
Did you want to add something?
Thank you.
Got any feedback, any questions, please email me,
Yeah.
and I'll make those adjustments.
I took some notes here, so we'll discuss the suggestions and revise the document.
But it's great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to student success plan.
I'd like to invite Mr. Crowell to talk about our new student success plan initiative this year.
Yeah. First of all, I just, thank you, Jerry, for bringing back this conversation. You know, when Mike approached me about working sessions, board meetings, and I said, I know what board meetings are. They are what the system are. Working sessions allow us to have this conversation to get better and do those things. So I really do appreciate those open conversations that we get to have. We find them obviously very beneficial to have that input. So thank you for that. As you know, we changed our schedule. We went to a straight 8 period, got rid of modified block. We talked about that in great detail. With that, we brought homeroom and warp. And I'll use that word interchangeable, and I'll explain that for you. Once again, homeroom is on Monday. All students have to go to their homeroom teacher. There's no movement in the building. Mondays are used for a lot of different resources, building that relationships, getting to know your homeroom teacher. And this is where this document comes in. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, students are allowed to go to different areas for intervention, request teachers for help, support, and then once a month, Friday, we're trying to do some relationship building and fun things. This student success plan really came out of how can we help our students learn? Students with disabilities have an IEP. Well, an IEP is nothing more than just saying this student learns best by X, Y, Z. And so what we did was we built a document, and I won't go through every single component, but just allow that homeroom teacher to work with that individual student, talking about assessments, talking about plans, talking about goals, talking about how they're doing overall in their classes, their progress, notes, reflection. And so it's a quick document and even a redefining ready component to it where that homeroom teacher can really focus on the academic component. What's nice with a homeroom teacher to do this, we had a couple teachers use this document last year, was they're not the content teacher. They're an advisor. There's a support person, so there's no judgment there. What I'm really looking forward to is taking this document and then eventually, we're not there yet, but hopefully in a couple years, that our homeroom teachers will be holding conferences with our parents because the relationship component is there. Right now, a student, for example, a freshman, will have the same homeroom teacher for the next 4 years. And so that relationship with that student, the relationship with that parent will eventually become very, very strong because of the amount of communication going back and forth. And this document allows that conversation between the parent, the teacher, and the student. And so that homeroom is truly, teacher is really a mentor teacher. Eventually, we still like to get to a point where it's the homeroom teacher at graduation hands out the diploma. Not an administrator, but someone that has built that relationship, no offense, built that relationship with that student over 4 years. My previous employment, we had that, and the relationship, the passion, the commitment to that plan. And so right now, we took this document, and we really told our staff it's not something you just check a box and get done. I said, we're gonna slow down, we're gonna add to it, we're gonna look at it. Right now, we have teachers and paraprofessionals. Every staff member in the building has a homeroom. So I have paras, I have support people, we have teachers that have a homeroom. And I said, is this a slow process? I learned before, if you rush this plan and it's just a check box, it's not utilized. And so we really, this week we're really spending on time. Can we get one of these documents in a Google Doc for every single kid? Can I get a name on a document and then start to build it? So we're going to be very systematic of how we build this document to make it a living document, to make it worthwhile to the student. Because if the student sees this as nothing more than something they have to do, there's no value. And as soon as we can start to apply value to this document, we're going to see some movement. And that's why we see assessments right away. I talk to many freshmen, they want to go to college, they want to go to Madison, they want to do this, this, and this. But if they're getting a 12, 13 ACT as a freshman, we need to start having those critical conversations with kids saying, we want you to get to Madison, but a 12 and a 13 on ACT is not going to get there. If we have students in 9th grade saying, well, I'm interested in welding, well, then that teacher needs to help that student understand, well, these are classes we need to go to. This is the plan. So it creates those conversations within a home group setting with a mentor. Each home group is around 15 to 18 students, so very manageable. Today we had our second homeroom on a Monday, and there was a lot of interaction. Homeroom right now, they have to choose a walk-up song. So we do a lot of fun things to build those relationships with kids. So I'm excited, to roll this out. We call this, obviously a student success plan, but like I said, it's going to be a slow process because I just don't want to have any missteps, and then this document gets cast to the side.
I think another small but powerful thing with Rob's idea as well is we have the practice ACT this week. We'll have the real one obviously in the spring. Your homeroom teacher will be the one proctoring your room. So that's another one. Like if I'm filling out the sheet and I notice you got an ACT in English, and during our prep work or something like that, and I know your scores, we're going to be putting that time in. I notice you're not doing something today, and I'm trying to get your ACT up to a 16 or higher. I have just that much more of a connection with you over your 2 to 3 years here to help you improve those grades.
I mean, in the past too, speaking of the ACT, we would have kids that say, well, I'm not going to college. Well, that's fine. And then all of a sudden a teacher finds out that they do have a 16 or 17. Well, now it's a gateway promise. So really just having that relationship with the students and having an idea of where the students want to go and what that looks like has really opened up some doors and really changed the pathway for a lot of our, my past students, but now our future students.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
First of all, do the teachers seem to buy into this, and it's not being just a checkbox? Because just in the past, when things are given in homeroom, teachers are like, that's not my job.
Yep, it's going to be tough, and so that's why as administrative team, we are not saying you need to have this done by this day. Right now, even today, we have about 4 or 5 teachers shared with me their Google document that every single kid had one, because that's the only goal we have for the month of September. And so I want to go very, very slow and deliberate to keep bringing up, because you're absolutely correct. If I just said, do this, it's not going to be that way. And we're really trying to sell that this is the student's document, because we want to teach our students how to go into Skyward, how to pull out some of their assessments. So we really don't want this to turn into work for the teacher. We want the students to believe in this document and use this document. But like I said, I think I shared this with the leadership team. I'm looking to take a full year just to kind of implement using this document as a tool, to go slow, to go fast, really.
And then you said it's a Google Doc, so is that shared? Looking at it from a counselor perspective, obviously helping pick courses, helping with career pathways, so the counselors can see see these documents?
Eventually,
for each student?
yep, that's the next goal. As soon as we start putting stuff into it, well, let's share this with parents, let's share it with counselors, let's share it with everyone.
And the counselors could share back, because they have you still do individual planning conferences for each grade, right?
Correct,
So-
correct. And now we're finding out that Zello, which is our online program, and we're trying to get, does some of this for us. So now can we train kids on how to use Zello and say, okay, well, this is here, that's here. So we're kind of blending the databases, because right now we have Zello, but a lot of our kids and teachers, we're not utilizing what the strengths that it can do for us. So, like I said, it's something that I did go fast with this document, and it failed miserably because the teachers said, well, there's more for me to do. But then we did it the following year. We weren't really slow. The next plan is, let's see if we can use this document during conferences. That will be the kicker, to say, if I have to sit down with a parent, student and teacher to talk about some of these things on a document, it starts to become real. And so, my admin team, the leadership team, they'll remind me to slow down, in order for our teachers to say, okay, it's not more work. We told our teachers right away that homeroom and work will be probably the hardest class they teach per day, because they don't know what's walking into their classroom. They don't know exactly what needs are to be met on a single day. But it's also the most rewarding because of the relationships that are being maintained and built. Good question.
Can you scroll to page 2? So I didn't think of this before, but that chart on the bottom with number of essential standards and standards that need to reflect 80%, that actually might be really good to put in the other one, in the other document, because I think it really paints a picture. If there's only 3, you have to pass all 3 to get that 80%. So that table might actually be really good to be copied into the handbook.
Thank you. And I stole that page from the Ms.
And if it's in there
Acosta.
already, I missed it, but I don't think it
Yeah.
was.
There's a narrative, but
There
I mean,
is a
that
narrative,
shared-
but I think that-
chart would fit perfect there.
Yeah, yeah.
Ms. Acosta built this on her own and used it, and I'm like, was successful, so I'm like, I'm stealing that. So,
Oh.
I know she's not here, give her some
You're
love. Because once again, she said the kids in her homeroom last year, she wasn't coming after them saying that you're doing something wrong.
Right.
She was trying to say, okay, where are we at, what do we have to go? And the kids really embraced it. Love this document to create that dialogue with kids.
Well, this would be a great way for students to do student-led conferences.
Correct, that's the next goal, so, exactly.
I think this is awesome, because you have some students out there that, and I'll just go way back in my day. I mean, I was the first kid. My parents told me, you're paying your school or you're not going.
Yeah.
And this is an excellent way to show them potential that you can go. Instead of just saying, not happening.
Yeah. My big thing too is if it's not written down, it's really not real. You can talk about scores, you can talk about grades with a kid, but until they see it and feel it and understand the impact that those scores and numbers can have, and that's a difficult conversation. I got 2 juniors in high school right now trying to understand, that process. They took the pre-ACT today, I think. And so once again, they have no real concept of what they're doing or looking, but when you see it on paper, when you have those personal conversations with someone you can trust, you can really start to build that relationship and move that needle.
Is there gonna be a different ACT prep course this year?
The one that we had a teacher that taught a prep ACT.
Yeah.
She's no longer doing that prep ACT. We're trying to get someone from Waterford who has taught that. We're going to try to embed some of our ACT prep work during those Mondays within our ACT plan, but it's not to the level of that true
Yeah, no,
prep
I
course.
think there were some discussions on different ways to handle that.
Yeah,
Or how to, now that person isn't there.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowe.
All right. Capital referendum.
So for the last time, I just wanted to update the board on where we're at with our planning for that. So, we're working through the stages of development again. I think the last time we met, I told you that we had a meeting with Nexus. They are in the process of updating the project list and all the budgetary information that goes with that. They're also meeting with our family and consumer science lead teacher, and our tech ed lead teacher to review the plans that were developed last year to make sure that they still meet our needs, a year later. I think that'll be pretty quick. We, just the other day, we received updated quotes for audio equipment in the field house, theater, and stadium. All three areas have outdated equipment. Some of it's broken, some of it's missing. We can hear sound, but it's not to the level that it really should be in any of those areas. We're also looking at a proposal for video for the theater and the band room, so that our band can play from the band room during performances in the theater instead of being in the theater. So they're across the hall, basically, but we would pipe the music in and they'd be able to see what's happening on stage. So that's the way that a lot of theaters do it. So we're looking at that as a possibility. I don't have a budgetary number on that yet, though, so I don't know if that's realistic. One of the big projects that have been added to the list is a possible daycare. We have a lot of space here. We know that there's a need in the community. We are in a daycare desert here west of the I, which means that there's not enough daycare options for families, and it impacts their ability to be employed or fully employed the way that they want to be. So I've got a meeting set up tomorrow, a pre-licensing meeting with the Kenosha County Child Care Coordinator. I've done site visits to both Fontana and Palmyra to see their programs. And then I've submitted all the paperwork to move forward with a license. Now, there's a lot of moving pieces. It's not something that is happening yet. Obviously, it would require board approval, but because it's such a long process, I've already kind of got the wheels in motion here, and we'll talk about that as we get to the referendum planning. So if you hear about it, we're kind of in the exploratory stage. It would require some renovations. We've looked at a couple options with Nexus. The best option probably being to repurpose the district office area for daycare for a couple reasons. One, the plumbing is set up, in a conducive way with 2 sinks and bathrooms right there. And then we could also have a secured entrance right out to the street, as opposed to having families and kids come through the building and potentially crossing paths with students and teachers and things like that. So it could be completely separate. Would require some renovations. Working through the code right now, the state code when it comes to daycares. It's very lengthy, but we have most of the things that we really need to do because we're a school. We do a lot of it already anyway. So basically the process that I'm kind of driving toward is we can open up unlicensed because we're a school, we qualify to host daycare, and then work toward licensure. That would allow us to open potentially sooner. So just so you know that that's in the works, I'll share more as we go along in the process. And then I'm hoping to have our friends at Nexus come to our next working session, or maybe we'll have a special meeting to talk about the project list. Remember, we have until January to make a decision on a resolution, but for all intents and purposes, the sooner we can make the decision, the better, because then we can plan and campaign if the board decides to pursue a referendum. So that's where it's at this point. Any questions?
Both Riverview and Salem have like a, not quite daycare, but early age care. So I don't know if you want to see how that works for them. But
Yeah.
they have like in the building, but separate.
So I did reach out
Okay.
to all of our sender schools. None of them have 6 weeks to 3-year-old care,
Right.
full-time, and we'd be looking at probably 6 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., something like that.
3 is our defined kids club, is that what they have?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have the kids
They
go,
have
it starts
kids
at
club at
3
Randall.
at Randall.
So,
Yeah.
so we wouldn't compete with that. We'd be looking at, strictly babies and toddlers.
So it would cut off at 3?
When a student would turn 4,
Or
they would
4.
age out of the program,
Okay.
and then they become eligible for 4K,
Right.
at one of those schools,
Mm-hmm.
if they attend one of those schools. But yes, it would only go through 3
And
years
I don't
of
have a
age.
problem if it competes, because there's still a deficit. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's still
It's hard to find kids.
hard to find.
Yeah, But it would be a different type of program.
Yeah, okay.
At least at this time.
The only other thing to possibly, as you're looking through it, I know that a lot of our emergency services people have a really hard time with daycare because they can't go with a set schedule. So they can't go Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday because they have a rotating schedule. So I don't know if there's a way to build in an option, because that's, like, emergency service people have the hardest time finding childcare because of that.
Yeah, we would probably do it on a daily basis to accommodate those
Mhm.
schedules, and then potentially a discount for full-time.
Yeah, okay.
That's how both of those other schools that I visited
Cool,
do
cool,
it.
because I know sometimes they're just not flexible with that, and, you know, we want to be able to serve those people who are serving us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of people's schedules nowadays. It does make staffing challenging
does.
because of the ratios of
Mhm.
adults to children, you know, so, it'll depend on our ability to staff, honestly.
Which is why I think a lot of places end up not offering it, because it's
Right.
a scheduling nightmare.
Mhm.
But anyway,
But that might work best for our community, you know, we'll find out.
great, that's very exciting that you're looking out for that. I'm sure it's another potential funding source, utilization of our schools since we have extra space.
None of the districts in our conference and none of our sender schools have a program like this in their districts. So, obviously, it's a need for the area and something that we can provide because we have the space. And our location is conducive to this kind of being in the middle of a lot of communities, so I think it could be really good.
Where
Well,
else?
is it something you're thinking like we would lease out the space to or we would run it, like you would staff it?
So it can be done either way, but I am looking at it being our daycare that would be ran through Fund 80 Community Outreach. So we would levy for it, and then, you know, we would bring in revenue, and that would, you know, help hopefully sustain the program.
We're also looking at building kind of a teacher academy, working with Parkside. You know, Kim's here and she's already teaching a couple of educational courses, but we do have a lot of kids that are interested in the daycare area. And some of these upper level educational classes could tie into and giving our kids clinical type hours, working within the daycare. So that's a component that we've already talked to Parkside. We're starting to look at, we'll bring a couple of these education classes next year. You know, we talked about this year, we weren't ready for it yet. So we're bringing in some of those higher level college classes and starting to develop some of our own teachers. There is some elements through Gateway and possibly Parkside for younger kids too. So we can tie that component into it also.
It could be employment opportunities for students who are 18 years old or older as well. They can
So,
qualify for a license.
Doing something like that really does sell the destination district. I mean, you know, so when you fill out those, didn't we just do the review, his review packet? You know, make sure you're selling that, you know, looked at creative ideas to be a destination district in your, like, what I did last year.
Any questions about the progress with the capital referendum project revision? That's everything I have for tonight.
Okay, before we get back on the goofy subject. Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All those
I'm gonna go
in
to